everybody. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'm in a new location, but the beach is still fantastically gorgeous. Thanks so much for tuning in for today's beach live. I kind of was feeling like a mountain vibe today, I have to tell you guys, but I was like, Wednesdays, I always promise you the beach, so as always, I'm going to step aside so you can see the gorgeousness and all the kids and everybody out there. It's so pretty. So while you're taking in some beach, I'm just gonna do my little spiel slightly over. Just wondering how you guys are doing, how the energy was for this past full moon, you know. I feel like a lot of us are in this really interesting reflective space. I feel like I really needed to take some time to recharge. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I actually did, this was like the best kind of setup, but I'm also socially distancing, so I'm kind of by this guy that's playing his music. It's not bad music, so we'll just pretend like he's just playing the perfect track for my live. But if hopefully you can hear me properly. I do have my mic with me, so I figure that you probably can. So let's see, what was I saying before that? Oh yeah, so, you know, coming off of this really interesting, you know, full moon that we had in Sagittarius, you know, we also have the the node switch, so now the north node is in Gemini and the south node is in Sagittarius, and the way that, like, nodes were best explained to me is, it's like a dragon, so the north node is like the head of the dragon and the south node is the tail. So the head would be all of the things that you're thinking about and you're generating, and the ideas and how you're and what you're leading with. That would be like the third eye and intellect. And I think that's like a really great placement for Gemini. I mean, we're in Gemini season. We're still kind of in the middle of it right now. For those of us who haven't felt it, I feel like I have felt it tremendously, just in the whole expanding my mind and being able to hold two thoughts, two different thoughts simultaneously, and both being true, even though they both seem like they wouldn't be. So there's just a lot of like contrasting of ideas and contrasting of thoughts that just have really been showing up for me. So I'm actually wondering what is showing up for you guys. And you know, there's so much information out there right now, and so much of it is, I'm like, I agree with that, and then you're like, oh, I so agree with that. And even though it feels like the two should be in conflict, and you really want to polarize yourself, there's this feeling that like you want to not feel, you want to just be black or white, right? Like you want to stand on something. However, there's actually like a little bit of truth into both. And that can lead to, for people who actually have the mind that's nimble, that can kind of jump back and forth between those two, they love that. They're like totally getting off on that right now. Like all of my Gemini friends are just like, oh my God, this is like the best time. So much stuff is going on, and you know, but for those of us who actually like to take a strong stand in things, and it's kind of like this way or no way, that can be a rough place to be, because it's really asking you to stretch yourself and to look outside of yourself for truthful answers. And the fact that, you know, what you thought was true actually might not be true at all. And we're going to come up against this, I mean, just with this season, because we have, I'm going to check my notes real quick. We have so much like Neptunian, Piscean energy that's happening right now. And we talked about that before, with that energy of deep feeling, deep compassion. There's a lot of martyr energy to that as well, a lot of self-sacrifice. That's kind of sort of what the Pisces, what they can do best. They're able to set aside their own personal needs and goals for the greater good for others, and that's a really beautiful thing. They also, you know, with that, you also have to make sure that you're having really strong and good boundaries, because a lot of times in that self-sacrifice, you could just totally get walked all over. So whenever we're, you know, wrestling with the energies of Neptune and Pisces, we always want to make sure that in the great levels of sacrifice, and as we kind of play around with all of the art and everything that's happening, because it's also a very creative energy, loves music. So if you're a musician, or if you just appreciate listening to music, that's something that could be a really good recharge for you. Water, 100%. is a very, very, very good recharge for everybody that has any kind of Piscean, Neptunian energy. Salt baths. I love a good Epsom salt bath, guys. I do. I actually don't have a bathtub in my condo, which is not uncommon here in Hawaii, actually. In certain areas, you know, just because like that is the bathtub, right? But sometimes I wish I did, but you know, I use the ocean for that, for those kinds of baths. But if you don't have access to the ocean, you're not able to go, a saltwater bath is fantastic in terms of purification and opening up. But you know, we're really trying to balance all of these energies that are coming in. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, especially about, you know, we have so many things. Let's see, where do we start today? So with that being, hold on. Oh, notes. Yes. Mars square Pisces. Oh, that beautiful, interesting energy of do it, aggression, sometimes sickness, sometimes illness, activity, activation, working hard, masculine, you know, kind of go get 'em energy mixed with the kind of watery, slightly distant, cool but yet very compassionate energy. And yeah, I just think that there's a lot of things in there that we want to take stock of as we're managing our energies right now. We kind of came off of like a big energy push, and we might be, you know, this week kind of settling into a place where we're starting to feel the burnout a bit, because we've put forth so much energy in the last couple of weeks. And so if you're starting to feel the burnout, which a lot of us are, it is a really good time to figure out what are the things that make you relax, what are the things that feel good for you in your life. And sometimes things can be different for everybody. For some people, actually, a different kind of activity is very calming and soothing for them. So sometimes people like to, you know, do a hot yoga class, or they like to bike ride or something. And for some people, they actually need to fully disconnect from everything. So they would need to like step away from their electronics, and get into the nature, you know, go to the beach or get into some sort of body of water, or, you know, ground yourself, take your shoes off, put your feet on the sand, put your feet in the grass, put your feet in the river, in a lake, or in some sort of body of water. Just like connect with the earth with your hands and your feet. It could be gardening, whatever it is you need to kind of recharge your center. Because more than likely we're going to be going back out, you know, and you know, we're dealing with this Mars energy that's coming out. So the battle isn't over, but for sure it is time to say, you know, we've won like the small battle, right? The war isn't over, but you know, once you have those little wins, it's important to recognize that and to kind of take stock. And you want to make sure, like, okay, how many men do I still have here, and women? You know, like, what do our weapons look like? You know, let's make sure that all the soldiers are well fed. You know, we're just kind of taking care of ourselves and taking care of those around us who have actually been kind of like mobile and like up and doing things at this time. Let's see. What was the other thing? Oh, the other interesting thing when I was researching that I found to be, I'm always looking at astrology from a point of like, so whenever we've seen, when have we seen this happen before in history? And what was going on before in history that can kind of give us an inkling as to where we're going? So apparently 500 years ago, we had Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And during that time was the Protestant Reformation. And I thought like, and also dealing with the plague, I feel like during every major social upheaval, there's been a plague. So that's also very interesting too, right? You know, it's just like everything is cleansing itself. A lot of the time when the fever, when you're sick and you have a fever, a lot of time it's like burning out like the whatever it is, whether it be the virus or the bacteria. So it's like this purging and the shedding of the things that are making us sick and are no longer working, like in our physical bodies, and also the systems in the world. And our body is actually just a really complex system anyway. So yes, the Protestant Reformation, that would be where Martin Luther decided to break off from the Catholic Church, and we stopped using priests as these direct communicators to God, for those who believe that. And so at that point, it was, you know, you didn't have to necessarily have an intermediary between you and the divine. You could actually then go and do that yourself. You could get on your knees. You had more of a direct connection. And that just changed so many things. I mean, you know, the country was kind of built off of the sect of those beliefs. And so during that time, it was a lot of social upheaval. There was a lot of, it wasn't like an easy transition. Going to a completely different system when everybody was used to viewing, and they were quite religious back then, and to be atheist or not to have religion was a huge deal, So to step away from that and say, I actually think that there's a different way to do this, and I think that I can have a more direct connection with the divine, and I don't really need you, person, who's kind of acting as that as that Mercury that's going, between the gods and human. We don't need the priest. We don't need that energy. That was huge. A lot of times I think when people have a realization and they realize that they can do things by themselves or on their own, and they don't necessarily need a system that they had before, a lot of times what the people who are in the system, like the priest or anybody who used to be important, or it could even be something like financially, like we have certain jobs that are necessary jobs, essential jobs, and then they become automated as we kind of are moving forward with technology, and we don't need people anymore, like coal workers, or obviously we need humans, but the people who are doing those particular jobs, there's this sense of the person who has that job or who was holding that space for such a long time to at one point be the most important thing in people's lives, to suddenly not be necessary anymore. I think that's a loss. I think there's a little grief there that's happening, and I think taking the time to understand your new place, because we're always finding new places and where we fit in, and just because you're no longer needed in this capacity doesn't mean that you're not needed at all. It doesn't mean that you're invalidated at all. And so I think as we kind of move through our energy and we move through what's happening in the world right now and all of the changes that we have that's going on a social level and a social justice level and an emotional level, and people who were deemed important, or people or cultures that seem to be dominant cultures that were kind of saying this is the way things are and we're kind of the measure for everything, suddenly those structures are being removed. And so when the people who are in power, or systems when they're in power, when they start to fall apart, there is this sense of like, I'm not needed anymore, I don't have any purpose, my life doesn't matter, right? And I think it's really important for those people when you're making that transition to understand that there's still a value. Just because systems have changed doesn't mean that your life, it has anything to do with your life and your value on being here in the world. I just think it's a system change, and now energy is different and power structures are different, and that's just one of those things that you have to kind of sort of deal with, and trying to deal with it in a healthier way, as opposed to in a way that's like holding on to the, that gets into tower energy, right, where you're holding on to this fixed structure, and you don't want to let go. And the reason why you don't want to let go is because you're afraid that the whole thing is going to fall down, right? And there's no place for you, and it would lead to destruction because you can't see what's on the other side of that. And it's so interesting. We get into such panic and to such fear, and this is leading me into the next section that we're going to talk about. We get into such panic and such fear when we don't know what's going to happen on the other side. And I want to transition now this talking to one of the things that was really important to me that's been coming up a lot, and I've been getting a lot of messages about, which is the relationship between intuition or the difference and the compare and contrasting of intuition and paranoia. We have so much of that happening right now. There's so much information. There's so much. We are in a brainy space, right? We're like little brains with legs walking around right now during Gemini season. And so the level of information, how it's coming to us, and the multiple ways that it's coming to us, and all of the social media and our emails and the conversations and everything, we're just these processing centers, right? That's what the brain is. We're trying to figure this all out. And it's very, very challenging for a lot of people. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. We've talked about that. And so I just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about like what it means to find your center and what intuition is to me, and just share about like how to better develop your intuition, so as you get inundated with all these different ideas, you can actually be able to like hone in and listen to yourself and make like choices that are going to be best for you, and choices that are not based on fear, and choices that are not based on anxiety and all of that. So I actually have, because I always do, some tarot cards that I think are like a really great explanation or a really great visual what does it mean to be intuitive and what it means to kind of live from a place of anxiety or a place of paranoia. So of course we have our High Priestess because she is the embodiment. We have our major arcana card. She is interestingly enough, I just want you to take a moment. I'm putting her up close just so that you can see, and I mean all cards are different, I just happen to be using the Rider-Waite deck, and just the calm, serene look on her face. It's the look that you have when you know what's going on. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to know it like step by step, but you just know enough so that you know that you're going to be okay. And she's holding the scroll, which actually says Torah on it, and she's standing between the two pillars, which would be representative of yin and yang, right? And she's the keeper of the gate and the keeper of secrets, and she has immense knowledge, and just spending time with her in her presence, archetypally that is, you will gain knowledge. You will gain that intuition. I think she's also standing on a crescent moon as well, or her foot, I believe. That's her, or her robes at least, or like on the crescent moon. And everybody has different relationships with the High Priestess. I mean, especially some tarot readers and people that are really into, some people pick her a lot. I pick the Magician a lot. I have a lot of Magician energy to myself, and also Nine of Pentacles is like my jam. But she comes up to me I would say maybe about 3 times a year. I will be picking her, and she'll come up a lot. Recently, with everything that we've been going through, she's been coming up quite a bit. And I think whenever I pull her or I think about her energy, I just think about the quietness, the knowledge, because it's not like she's not using just only okay, I'm going to think about, I'm just gonna be intuitive and just feel into everything. Obviously she's doing that, but she also has a well-learned mind. She's done her research. She's looked at both sides, and then after looking at both sides and then kind of sinking into how she feels, because a lot of moon energy in that, and she's thinking about that, then and only then is she making her decision. And a lot of times her decisions are actually not maybe as active. I feel like in a lot of ways she might pause and wait. It's like a really beautiful game of chess where you're just not in such a rush. You're going to see what the other person does. You're going to and that's a huge part of intuition in its most receptive feminine quality, is that I want to see what you're doing before I actually go and make my move. Now, interestingly enough, I started watching this show. Oh my gosh, now I forgot the name of the show. The Last Airbender. Yes, how could I forgot that? So it was a show that was really popular when my son was younger, and now my son is older, and so I guess it just came back to Netflix, and so we've been binge watching all of these episodes, and it's such a fantastic show. I mean, it's animated, but I love sci-fi and fantasy and all that kind of stuff. And everything about it is especially as someone who loves astrology and archetypes and tarot and stuff like that, I love it so much. And so it was on this episode with Toph, and Toph is the earth bender, so she's like this 10 or 11-year-old girl. She's got this crazy earth, and so basically bending is being able to use the elements at your will and kind of sort of connect with them deeply and then be able to use them. Not everybody in your tribe can bend, but she's part of the earth tribe, and she's a earth bender, powerful earth bender, and she's also blind. And so I thought a lot about Toph, interestingly enough, because you would think that it would be a water, because the moon is associated with her, but just in the depiction of the show, Aang, he's like the avatar, right? So he has to master all of these different elements. And if you know this, just bear with me as I explain this to the noobs, right? But so he's trying to find this earth bending master, and he talks to his guru, and his one of the guru is you'll find her because she'll listen first, and then she'll react. His earthbenders are powerful because they're moving the earth, they're moving stone, and nothing's more stubborn or more heavy than that, so anyway, they had this big competition, and all these earthbenders are these big huge guys, and they're breaking things and doing all this really cool stuff, and it's like a MMA match or something, and then out comes this little tiny girl, and everybody's there's no way, she's going up against this big jack dude. And when he moves to go towards her, she actually has this kind of sonar, so she can actually feel the waves of the earth or energy through the earth, and she knows what people are doing. So anyway, she totally kicks his ass with the least amount of effort. And with that, but she listens first, she actually allows him to make the first move. And then, because she has this like connection with the earth, she can feel like where he's moving and what he's doing, if he's on one leg or not, and where the hit's coming. And then she ends up like defending herself and like winning or whatever. And so it just, all of that being said, it reminds me so much of the High Priestess, because there is that quality of like, even if I'm in a defensive stance or I'm here to like, show up and battle or whatever, I'm still kind of like tuning in to what's going on. I'm checking out your first move, and then I'm going to react to that. I'm not going to be the one that's just going off. That would be, they have a fire nation and they're like really firing. They're like, destroying everything and want to rule and take over all of the other tribes. And there was just that really beautiful, like quiet quality of listening first and allowing someone else to make the first move before you actually react to that. And I think having that beautiful, like High Priestess energy is really good when you're tapping into your intuition, because you're actually listening, you're taking both sides in, it's a calm feeling. It's not a hyper feeling. It's not like this intuition. For a lot of people, for some people it's different, but for a lot of people it can be so quiet that you didn't even realize that it actually was intuition. Like you just thought like, oh, it can be the quietest voice. And I noticed that for myself, because I spent a period of time where I was not in contact with my intuition, and it was always there, but the voice just got really, really, really quiet. And I realized that it was always there. I just needed to listen to it. I was second guessing it. I was like putting it on a shelf. I was like, no, I don't want to deal with that. But it wasn't something that spoke out to me in a really loud way. Now that I'm very in tune with it, and I do a morning practice and I meditate, and I'm just like a lot more connected. And I'm also living on like the most connected place like on the planet, really, like in terms of that. So I feel that now there are times where it is glaring, like where it's just like, especially when I get the hard no. And maybe I'll have a video about the hard no, because nobody likes the hard no. When I get the hard no, it's like boom. It's like, I think something's gonna happen. I want to manifest something, and then I get like a boom, a hard no. Like, no, that's not happening. But usually when it's like, what should I do about this? Or, oh, I don't know about this person, or should I get involved with this? It's a quieter voice. When it's that way, it's like, no, that doesn't feel good, or that, like, oh, maybe today isn't a good day to do that, or maybe you should go over here. Yeah, you really do need to pay that bill, or, like it's a very quiet, easy, soft kind of voice. And it usually doesn't make me feel like, it doesn't make me jump up and say, oh my gosh, what was that? Who was that? What was that? It's something that it's just so in alignment with who I am, and it's so easy. And then I feel, oh yeah, I should do that. I don't feel super guilty. I don't feel angry. I don't feel anxious. I feel like, okay, yeah, let me do that. Or, oh yeah, walking down this road was probably a bad idea. It is dark, and it is, whatever that thing is. Or, oh, that person, that doesn't feel right being with them. I think that I'm gonna have to like get out of that situation. So it's, to me, it's this really kind of nurturing, motherly type energy, as opposed to paranoia, Nine of Swords. Okay, so we can like right away see the complete difference. We see a person in profile. We don't even see their full self. You see like the priestess, she's just like, here I am, like you see my full self. I'm just squared off to you. Here, this is a obscured person, their hands are in their face. We don't even get the chance to see what their face looks like because they're in so much pain and agony. And I mean, this is a card all of us have experienced, right? We have all, literally, not only have we experienced this card, the feelings of this card that is invoked, we've literally done this. We've literally been laying in the bed like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is going to be so bad. And you wake up and you're just like, like literally, and you just feel those swords that are just hanging and dangling over your head, and that's like all that you can think about. And it's almost as if like each sword itself is a different worry. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about that? And then if that doesn't work out, then it's going to be this. But if I don't do anything, then it's going to turn to this. And this is what everybody's going to think about it. you literally can go down every sword and list all of the different things that you're worried about or you're concerned about. Now, with that being said, a lot of these things are in the mind. A lot of these things are just ideas and thoughts that keep you up at night so that you're not like moving forward. You're not even really in a place where you can actually think your way out of it because your thoughts are saturated with so much anxiety and so much negativity. That would be more paranoia. That would be more, and for lack of a better word, that would be more of the anxiety, the stress. So suddenly you have all of these things you're worried about, or the other thing with that is you can also have like all of these things that you think are happening and they might not necessarily be true. And I see so much of that right now, and I'm getting lots of messages about that right now from people, and that's why I wanted to address this. Like all of the things that we're worrying about, all of the different conspiracy theories, all of the different things that everybody says is messed up and that's so wrong and it's so this and we have no control and it's all going to hell and it's all shit and all, like all of that stuff. We can be so wrapped up in all of those thoughts and that negativity and the loss of control and the loss of self-esteem and all of those things that we're actually not even able to function and use like our good brains and just to get ourselves out of like basic things that we've always dealt with, you know, because we always are dealing with like our basic shit, right? Like we always have a backpack of just our issues, right? Everybody has like those 3 or 4 things that are a little bit rough in their life. And then we're hit with like global pandemic, we're hit with social justice and Black Lives Matter and racism and systemic racism, and we're hit with financial difficulties, we're hit with our businesses, we're hit with sickness, we're hit with loss, we're hit with so many different things. And so I feel like when we're dealing with all of those things, when we're in this place where we're in overwhelm and we feel like we're out of control, we can very easily make stories to make us feel that we're in control, or listen to stories that make us feel that we're in control. And those stories actually, in trying to make us feel like we know what's going on and make us feel better, actually make us feel so much worse. So some of the things, if you are hearing your intuition we talked about earlier, remember how it could be a soft voice. Even if it's a loud voice and you don't understand it, it's still nothing that feels separate from you. It's nothing that you're necessarily afraid of. Ooh, I think we're getting a little bit of am I getting rain? Oh, maybe not. It's just the wind that's from like, there's a little like washer over there where people wash the sand off their feet, and I'm like, I'm getting wet, what's going on? Okay. So remember again that like intuition has that soft feeling. It has that feeling that is much more like nurturing. That's like a whisper. That's like it's like a feather, you know, like that's rubbing across your skin in some ways. It doesn't feel separate from you. It feels like part of you. It doesn't make you feel afraid. That's different. Paranoia, misinformation, those things cause anxiety. They cause worry. They cause separation, distrust. It causes anger. It can cause rage. It can cause like just massive separation from people that you would normally feel that you trusted what they said and you valued their opinion, and you maybe have had like a long history with them, and there has never been a time where you haven't valued what they said and what they did, but suddenly now, you know, it's different, you know. It also feels isolating and alone. Intuition doesn't feel like that. No, I'm not saying that you can't be intuitive and feel sometimes alone because you're the one that kind of can sense things, and in the knowledge of that, it can feel isolating. That's different. Feeling slightly isolated or feeling like you might be alone in an emotion is different than feeling alone in your thoughts, especially when your thoughts are like this. Yeah? Also, there's an obsessive nature that comes to that paranoia that you don't have with intuition. When your intuition kind of sort of talks to you and tells you gently or loudly to do something, it's not something that you typically obsess over. A lot of times you either listen to it or you don't. And then if you don't listen to it, you know, you might get yourself in some trouble and you're like, fuck, you know, like I didn't, like, God damn it, you know, I should have listened, you know. But even with that, it's not like you're doing it and you're like, oh my God, I had this feeling and I said I shouldn't do it and I'm doing, you know, like that kind of crazy making energy kind of does, either you're going to listen to your intuition or you're not, or you will choose not to, but then you're in the situation and you're like, well, it is kind of weighing on me, maybe I should actually, it's, and that's a different feeling than like obsessive, like heart pounding, fear-based thinking, and then decision making based out of those things. So I actually am going to do a YouTube video that talks a little bit more in depth about intuition. It specifically will be talking about the clairs, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but like the clairvoyance and the clairsentience and all the different clairs or senses or seeing. There's always birds. Like if I am anywhere outside, there's literally going to be like 5 or 6 birds around me, because I am like the bird lady. I'm like birds, cats and birds, super duper witchy girl I am. But they were so cute. They just like are walking by and cooing and stuff. And chickens, for some reason chickens love me. I don't eat them. That's probably why they love me. But yeah, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the clairs. We're going to talk about like how best to like some best practices to develop your intuition. I think that'll be really important. I think right now that is like one of the most important things for us to do at this time, simply because there's so much out there. We need to navigate the waters in a very smart way. And when I just, even in navigating the waters, like there's a thing, like we don't really like swim at night here, yeah? Like we don't go in the ocean at night because we know there's sharks, and like if there's been like a big rain and like everything is kind of washed down because everything, all the waterfalls, everything wash out to the ocean, and there could be like, pig, whatever, like, animals that have died that have gotten washed out, at the mouth of where the water meets the ocean, sharks are around there. So, we're using our best judgment about things. We're not kind of like catapulting ourselves into darkness and negativity unless we're like adrenaline junkies, and that's a whole different thing. That would be more Sagittarian energy and Aries specifically. Mars energy, Jupiter energy, kind of catapulting ourselves into the unknown or the things we don't know. But even with that though, there's a sense of challenge in that, and there's something to learn in that, and like stamina that you're building. But just kind of like actively making a choice to stay in the darkness, actively making a choice to listen to all the negativity and the fear-mongering stuff that's out there. There's a lot of things that are built into creating that kind of life for us, because when we are in a place of fear all the time and scared, and honestly, like a lot of the misinformation, conspiracy theory stuff really does put us in that place, even though it might make you for 5 minutes think that you know something and you have the one up on it, because a lot of times it can turn into something that actually just causes more paranoia, and you go further down the rabbit hole. And something that I didn't realize as I was researching this is people are addicted to it. It can be incredibly addictive. So we're going to talk about that, because that needs to have its own its own chat. So and like I said, like the remedy for that, I think, is just going deep within yourself and like finding out like how your intuition works with you, and then kind of leaning on that in times where things are dark and you can't see your way out. So thank you guys so much for listening in and joining me at the beach today. I really, really appreciate you coming on. This is going to be up on the IGTV live, so if you came on late, hey Beth, I just saw you. If you came on late or you missed it, it will be back up, so you can just watch it from the beginning. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, you can always put it in the comments below. And I just want to wish everybody to stay safe and to stay healthy, and remember to take care of yourselves during this time, because there is a lot of energy that's going on, and you want to just, for all the energy that you've put out for the last couple of weeks, you really want to recharge that battery, and now is the time to do that. We have Mercury that's going in retrograde in Cancer, so we're about to, after all of this chatter and after all of this energy that's going around, we're heading into Cancer season, which for me can be a little bit rough just because like our hearts are open, and that's dealing with like all of our kind of the way that we nurture, the way that we are nurtured, and we're going to be deep in our emotional selves at that time, and we're going to be processing on an emotional level all of the stuff that we've been talking about, because first you have to talk everything out, you have to get it all out, you have to actually just kind of purge it all, and then you're going to deeply be emotionally dealing with it. And so as we move into Cancer season, that's what that's going to be about as well. So I think now is a good time to exchange ideas, to really, like, you know, broaden your mind, to see if you're able to, you know, say, okay, I was raised this way, but now I'm learning something new, and how can I integrate these two things that feel very different so that it works for me, digging deep into your intuition and, you know, kind of leaving the crazy alone. But thank you guys. If you are interested in getting a reading from me, you can email me at kaylani@thewildwahine.com. I have a YouTube channel. I have, like, I think 4 that I just started like a month ago. I have about 4 videos up there. I have videos every week on my YouTube channel, and I also do these lives at 1:11 every Wednesday. Beach live. I'm gonna give you guys some beauty here, some ocean gorgeousness, as I do at the end of all my videos, just so that you could take a moment to look at how pretty it is. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. And like I said, be on the lookout for my next YouTube video. Thank you so much. Bye.